Hello and welcome to Kelp Social's first podcast episode. I am joined by Darrell, social media manager of Plant-Based News, vegan activist, and an ex-zookeeper. So I have got so many questions for you.
Good.
So much to talk about. I think I wanted to start first, just get your journey to veganism, because I think it's really personal.
Yeah, for sure. Well, firstly, thanks for having me on the podcast, and I feel very privileged to be the first one.
Thank you.
So thanks for having me. Yeah, definitely, it's different for everyone, isn't it? Their journey to veganism. So for me, I dare say there were a lot of moments leading up to it, a lot of like seeds being planted in my non-vegan brain at the time. Zookeeping being one of them, one of the things that attributed or contributed to my eventually going vegan. But for me, it was definitely a film that, a film that made me go vegetarian first, a film that made me stop eating animals. And that was a film on Netflix called Okja. Okja.
I haven't heard of that.
Oh, right. Yeah, you should watch it. It's fantastic. Yeah, Okja, Okja, or Okja. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It's a fictional film, so it's not a documentary, so it's not graphic. It's not graphic animal slaughter. But without giving too much away, everything that happens in the film is essentially what we do to real-life animals in society when we breed them for food and fashion and whatever else. So, yeah, I watched that film, and as soon as the film had finished, I was like, I'm never going to eat meat again. And yeah, that was it, like a really clear moment. And then from there on, kept seeing kind of stuff on social media, and then I heard about the film Dominion, which is a documentary. I'm sure you know, but if people listening don't know what that is, then yeah, it's a documentary about all of the ways in which we use, abuse, and exploit animals for food, fashion, entertainment, and everything else. And yeah, I watched that.
The list goes on.
Yeah, the list does unfortunately go on. I watched that, and then on the spot, yeah, that was it. Vegan from there on out.
Yeah, I feel like documentaries and social media is one of the big causes now, lifting the lid. I mean, I do wonder, there's so many exposés that come out, big companies, Red Tractor Farms, and I do wonder what happened back in the day before social media, when expose could be uploaded to Instagram. I mean, these things just weren't advertised, or people just didn't know about them, surely.
Yeah, it would have been a lot harder. People out on the streets shouting about it. That's the only way.
That's it. But seeing the abuse is, and I mean, you can talk about shock value and things like that. I did a post about the in ovo testing, because Andy Shovel, the guy who started this, has started his own charity, as I'm sure you're aware.
Yeah.
Called It's a Bit Weird, and he's trying to put a sort of, I wouldn't say, humor, to sort of try it a different way, have a different outlook on the horrific animal abuse. I mean, what are your thoughts on shock value and how to get the message across to people, this hard message?
Well, definitely from, touching on what you said about Andy and Isn't It Weird? Is that what it's called? Yeah. I think all approaches are needed. Some are more effective than others, and I think we should obviously focus on those that are more effective. But yeah, I try not to judge other people's approaches unless they are obviously very, very divisive or controversial, or just completely put people off. But when it comes to like the shock factor and showing people footage of what happens to animals, I'm a strong believer in we must. I mean, on my personal page on Instagram, and even when we've posted stuff on plant-based news in the past, we and I have often come under fire for, not putting graphic warnings and stuff like that, which I completely understand. And yeah, so for work now, we try and steer away from graphic footage. But definitely when I advocate, I constantly use shocking footage, because that was essentially what made me go vegan, and that's what turns a lot of people vegan, I think, because as you say, like back in the day, there would have been no way to get this footage or these images to the general public, and when they don't know actually what's happening behind closed doors on farms or in slaughterhouses, then we have to show them. And that's my personal opinion. So I'll continue to use footage and images where I can. And unfortunately, and it sounds horrible, but I want to upset people. I want people to be upset. They should be upset. And
it's such a hard truth, isn't it?
Yeah, and hopefully they will get upset and realize that they can do something about the animals' suffering and exploitation. So, and that's to obviously stop using them in all aspects of our society.
That's it. I think mine was Compassion in Wild Farming did an expose on piglets. Now, I won't go into detail for this podcast, but I'm sure if anyone listening is a vegan, then you know what happens to piglets. If you know, you know. And I think that was my moment when I just was so traumatized for the whole day. And then I realized the reality of the things that were happening and that are still now going on. And it's such a hard... I mean, do you find yourself super down about it? Like, if you stop and think for long enough, the state of the world and what we're putting animals through on a day-to-day basis, I mean, does it get you down?
Yeah, but not as much as you would think, because I'm at this weird place where I'm pretty desensitized, and I don't, even though it's all I think about all day, every day, I don't really allow myself to sit in that place, because if I did, I'd never get anything done, and I'd never do any good. But yeah, definitely, if I allow myself to sit and really, really think about it, then yeah, of course it gets me down. But I'm pretty desensitized now, and through the stuff I do outside of work, like organizing and attending slaughterhouse vigils and stuff.
Oh yeah, vigils, my goodness, I haven't done one of those yet. I went to see Valencia Animal Save in Valencia,
yeah,
and they do vigils. And
well, you're always welcome to come to Guildford if you think you can.
Thank you.
If that's something that you want to do. Yeah, so I do that every month. So there comes a point where I think there's some part of your brain that blocks it out, because otherwise you wouldn't survive and you wouldn't be able to carry on. Yeah. So yeah, it breaks my heart, but I find a way to carry on and push through.
I think that's the way I rationalize it with myself as well, because you are blogging about all this stuff, you're doing all this research, you know the horrors, but the only way that you can actually then make a change to these horrors and make a difference is if you compartmentalize, put it away in a box, and don't sit there at night thinking about sow stalls or, cows and all that horrible stuff. You do need to have that little box you can put it in and just survive with the knowledge, because that's the way that we're going to make a difference.
Yeah.
And keep educating people, and awareness is really important. I mean, I just want the divide to be, that's kind of for me what Kelp is about, is bringing people together. And it's not like, oh, it's us and the vegans. I don't know where all the controversy, all of the, as you say, a lot of people, the way their approach can be quite divisive. I mean, how do you think we can get around that and unite people and make it about the animals?
Yeah. Yeah, and I like what you're doing with Kelp, because it's not like vegan. It's animal lovers. It's, a network, a community of people who love animals, which is, let's be honest, everyone. Like, that's why this is so difficult, being vegan and advocating for animal rights, because everyone loves animals. They just don't connect the dots, I guess. Like
Speciesism.
Yeah, speciesism. Yeah, it's a real thing. I don't really know, but I've seen some good advocacy recently from a few people online. Jack Higgs and Tash Peterson over in Australia. And they're not the only. It's not like they invented this form of advocacy, but they're doing a lot of like dog meat taste testing on the streets and stuff.
Oh.
And
Wow.
And yeah, like there are a couple of people out of many that have tried this approach, but I think ways like that, ways to really like just snap people out of their head for a minute and compare their pet dog to a pig. Ways like that, I guess it's tapping into the animal lover side of people, and asking them to really think about the other animals. Yeah, which is it's an overused vegan tactic or point of view, dogs versus pigs, dogs versus cows, you wouldn't eat your dog, all those sort of things. But I think it does work. Yeah.
Certainly revealing. I mean, it's certainly exposing these misconceptions and this sort of favoritism that we have. And I think some of it stems from people not believing in the sentience or intelligence of a chicken or a pig, and the education and the awareness around how intelligent pigs actually are. It's so misunderstood. And I think if people really knew how intelligent they are, how committed they are as mothers, I think it would change people's outlook. But this is a long hundreds of years of. I wonder how much advertising and brands have a part to play in this misrepresentation.
Yeah, and I agree with you. But then I'm such a pessimist these days that it then on the other side of the coin is I don't even know if it works, because people, today there'll be people going to petting zoos, petting farms, children's farms, whatever you want to call them, like, and they will literally be taking their children there to pet and cuddle the piglets and the little baby lambs and all these gorgeous animals, and then they'll go in the cafe next door and have a burger or a bacon sandwich. So on the one hand, I absolutely agree with you, and we must all start spending time around these animals, like, because as a child, like, how often are you really spending time with a pig? You're not, but you're spending a lot of time with a dog. But if you spent time with the pig and saw how intelligent and loving and funny and silly and all the other emotions that they can show, then maybe you would not want to eat them. But then, as I said, I'm such a pessimist that people are doing that. They are going and cuddling pigs and they're still eating them. So I don't know the answer, but
the dissociation, I think, from our hunter-gatherer days where, we'd build communities around farming, and that's like one of the first reasons that humans really settled down to make a farm and have their livestock, etc. And now it's just go to a shop, ping your card, there it is. And I think that matching up, as you say, match up those dots. So what happened in between this packet and them being born? That's the real question.
It's a huge disconnect, isn't it?
Yeah, big disconnect. And I think as well, there's a lot of misinformation, and that's definitely something I wanted to ask you about today, because me as a vegan, I feel like I don't know enough about the myths. Which is the best plant milk, and why is it better than cow's milk? Because I think we can safely say the amount of methane cows produce.
Yeah. I mean, I think it depends why you're wanting to drink plant milk. Environmentally speaking, I think they're all better than dairy, than cow's milk. And one of the things people will say is like almond milk uses so much water, which is true. It's quite water intensive in comparison to the other plant milks, but it's still better than cow's milk in terms of the water usage for dairy. So they're all better environmentally. I think the best environmentally, they say now, is potato milk.
Oh my God, I hadn't even heard of that.
Yeah. Even it was always oat milk was the best for land use, emissions and water use. It was always the lowest. But I think potato milk is now even better. I don't know why or how, because I'm not a potato farmer, but apparently it's even less water, land and emissions.
Good old potatoes.
Yeah, I've not tried it yet, but you can get it in Waitrose, I think. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, a brand called Doug.
D-U-G.
Doug, I think is the brand.
That's such a good name.
I guess, yeah, and I don't know how much I can comment on health-wise, because again, I'm not a doctor, but yeah, we should know by now that dairy is like super high in saturated fat, clogs your arteries. It's been linked to certain types of cancer. And yeah, the list goes on. So plant milks are going to be better, and they're all obviously better for the animals, all of them, because dairy, is terrible for animals. Some say even more so than the meat industry, because it's kind of prolonged agony and suffering and exploitation, because, the cows will be forcefully impregnated via artificial insemination year on year. So they become pregnant, so they have babies, because they need to have a baby to produce milk, just like all other mammals, just like humans. And then their babies will obviously be taken away from them, because the farmers and the industry don't want them taking the milk, because we want the milk for humans. Yeah, and the male calves killed for veal when they're still babies, and the females, the cows, entering the same oppressive, exploitative cycle that their mother has been through. So, yeah, that would be my main driving force for why you should choose plant-based milk. But they're all better.
The males have it rough, don't they?
Yeah.
The males really, and I think that side of it has been forgotten. Like when people talk about vegetarians, and obviously they will still eat eggs and drink milk, but talking about milk, the prolonged, I mean, something like 10 years, isn't it? A cow's lifespan, or maybe more than that.
Even more, I think like 20. I'm pretty sure up to 20 years.
Yes.
And yeah.
And then you've got the males, then the veal, and then it's the same with the chick.
Yeah, same with the chicks, yeah. They're useless, aren't they? Useless to the industry.
Yeah. The great stuff with Innovo at the moment, that's because the solution, it seems, to many problems is that we need to stem the flow, stem the demand, slow it down, because there's no way that all these slaughterhouses can be monitored. There's no way, there's not enough space for all the animals to be properly cared for. There's not enough time. It's rushed to keep up to demand. But I think sometimes preventative measures like the in ovo is, I mean, it's not great, but it's still, because obviously the females do then go to lay eggs, which their welfare is, it's an extremely grey area, free range eggs.
Yeah, and they, free range, whatever, organic, whatever you want to dress it up as, they all go to the same slaughterhouse, don't they? And yeah, and chickens, hens, like they'll live for, I mean, I can't say accurately, but a long time, 6, 7, 8 years or something like that, and they are egg-laying hens killed at like 18 months of age because their egg-laying slows down, so they're no longer profitable for the farmers. Yeah, it's awful. And a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I rescued 2 hens from the egg industry, and they were about to be killed. And they were like bald as anything, like, no
feather plucking.
Yeah, no feathers from all the plucking and all the stress, and they eventually grew back their feathers and they lived for another couple of years. But yeah, it's tragic. Yeah.
Good on you for giving them
Yeah.
the last 2 years of their life.
Yeah.
You showed them mercy, and I think that's why vigils are so powerful, because I would just be a mess though.
It's okay. There's a lot of people that are like, especially the first time or first few times.
Yeah. What can one expect at a vigil for someone that might not know what we're talking about?
So, a vigil is essentially where a group of vegans, or just people for that matter, we would like non-vegans to come along as well, because then they would hopefully turn into vegans, after they see the animals. So basically we go to the slaughterhouse. We go once a month, and we bear witness to the animals going into the slaughterhouse. So we basically turn up, say we're sorry, document them in their last moments, take photos of them, video them, take video footage of the animals, in the hope to then post that content on social media and reach more and more people with their last moments. So hopefully we can turn their awful last moments on Earth just before they're slaughtered, hopefully into a somewhat positive, by reaching more people and encouraging more people to stop paying for this to happen, because obviously it's supply and demand.
Supply and demand, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's what we do. It's all peaceful. It's very different to a protest. It's very different to a demonstration that you might do in the middle of a high street, because obviously we have animals there. We want to make sure they are as comfortable as possible. So it's all peaceful and quiet, and so that's what we do. So I do that. I organise with 2 other people the vigils in Guildford in Surrey, and we do that once a month. And yeah, we need more people to come, to be honest. So yeah, you're more than welcome if you feel up to it. We probably
Absolutely.
get about 10, 15 people every month, whereas go back a few years pre-COVID, it was probably 20, 25, 30. So it's hard to get people out and about every month, standing out in the cold, depressing, horrible situation to be in. But we continue, and we have reached millions on social media, posting the cows. It's just cows at Guildford.
Do you feel like the response you get, is it quite efficacious a lot of the time? Do people message and say, oh my goodness, I had no idea?
It is, I'd say, half and half. Out of the people that actually decide to comment or message, I'd say half and half. Half is oh, that's my food. People saying those things.
My
Oh,
goodness.
it's my food. Like, stop playing with my food. All these stupid comments that they put. And then the other half is, oh, I'm gonna stop eating meat now, or I'm thinking about going vegan now, and that's why we do it. That's why we do it, because otherwise these animals wouldn't be seen. They'd spend their lives, their very short lives, on a farm tucked away down a country lane, with no one seeing them, and then they'd get in a big truck, a big windowless truck, with tiny slats, travel along the motorway to a windowless building behind big fences, and then they'd be slaughtered. It's like their whole life they've just been hidden. So that's why we do it. So they're no longer hidden, and we can say this was their face and this was their number tagged in their ear. So we can make it a personal thing. They are someone, and we want people to see who they were. And obviously we can't save them because they're going into the slaughterhouse, but we can hopefully slow down the demand and save the future animals that would be bred into existence for food. So that's why we do it.
You are a strong man, let me tell you. Honestly,
thanks.
Hearing that, it's just so emotional. But definitely, I'm with you on the desensitization. There's only so many images that you can look at and cry. Sometimes, if I'm having an off day, it'll seep through. There'll be a video that will get me, and I'll just be sitting at my desk sobbing for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But normally, if I'm strong enough on a good day, I can sort of just, I'm doing everything I can. That's that.
That's it.
You can't sit and ruminate over the reality.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that what you said is important. You're doing everything you can, because when you can't, the latest estimations are 90 billion land animals a year. Like, for a good while, it was always said it was like 80 billion. Now it's like up to 90 billion land animals slaughtered a year in the world, every single year.
So it's gone up.
Yeah. So if you can't,
gosh,
you can't get your head around those numbers. So there is no point getting yourself into a state over those numbers, because you can't change that. So yeah, you must focus on what you, even if it's a tiny thing, like focus on what you can do to make a difference. But I'm the same. Like, I am desensitized to it, but there are days when I'm having a bad day and it catches me off guard, or a day that we have a vigil. Often driving home, I'll think about the animals I've seen, or when it comes to me posting the footage. Yeah, it's sad. It's sad, but I just try and block it out. It's not healthy, but
it's not. But someone's got to do it. Someone has to do it, and that's why I think plant-based news is so great, because they're really covering a variety of topics, and so current and informative, so digestible that someone who isn't a vegan, who came across that, could then learn. I think it's the education of it that you guys are providing on that.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we try, and plant-based news is a lot more digestible and approachable and friendly in its advocacy. We speak about environment, health, animal rights, and everything in between, but we try not to do it in a pushy or judgmental or aggressive way, because we want to reach the most people with the message, and hopefully, being friendly in our approach does that. But we reached lots and lots of people. Last year was 2024. We reached just under 500 million, I think.
No,
I'm bad with numbers. It was 450 million, so that's nearly 500 million. Yeah.
Wow. And do you feel like the content has has changed slightly as you've got more, as you say, friendly? Do you feel like that's improved it, or has it just sort of changed the angle?
Definitely changed in the time I have been with plant-based news. It's changed. We've basically stopped posting graphic footage. We used to post a little bit here and there, but every time we did, we'd lose thousands and thousands and thousands of followers. So we decided, for the greater good, that we should steer away from that to reach more people. And we still talk about the same topics and subjects, but in a different way, so it doesn't put people off as such.
It feels like a rock and a hard place, because you've got this information and it's so horrific. Some of that footage is just unimaginable, but then you want to tell people about it, but people don't want to know about it. So you're kind of like, how can you streamline that into, okay, so this really awful thing is happening right now on English farms. I'm going to tell you about it, but in a nice way.
Yeah, it's so hard. And tie that in with social media being ridiculously difficult at the best of times. It's, sometimes feels like you're fighting a losing battle, which I'm sure you'll appreciate being in social media yourself.
Absolutely.
It's very difficult.
Social media paired with animal rights is difficult, because you want to educate people, you want to change people's minds, tell them what's going on, but you can't tell people what to think. And that's something I've noticed. Like, we had a social media account before the one we have now. And there was a lot of shock value on there. And I just realized how people just don't want to be told what to do. Like, they'll say, I've made my mind up about how I feel about this, but it's difficult as someone that wants to share the information. It's how to do it in the right way. And I think maybe that's where this divide has come from, because people are trying to share this information without offending people. And vegans seem to have a bit of a, like, whenever I say, for example, I'm a vegan, they go, oh, and I'm thinking, oh no, what is this label we seem to have?
It's got such a bad stigma. But that's why it goes back to what we said earlier. It's important that there are people using different techniques, because there might be people shouting in the street, or there might be people outside the slaughterhouse, or just posting on social media. But then there's other people going into schools and colleges and talking to kids and young adults about plant-based eating and about this and that. There's so many different approaches. There's people working in politics, even now, like, there's vegans making their way into politics. Like, there's so many different avenues we can influence people and society. So I think that's really important. Yeah.
It's a really, really good point to make, that's the way to do it, is to find different ways to approach the situation, educate people, because not everyone's going to respond to the same technique. So standing outside a shop covered in blood, again, you say the dog meat taste test, that will work for some people. Other people alienate them completely.
Yeah.
Completely. And if anything, they'll be more stubborn and more like, no, I'm going to do what I want to do, but mixing it up.
Yeah, exactly. And focusing on the people that are receptive. Like, for example, at the slaughterhouse, we have people walk past and engage in conversation with us. And if someone is coming at us from a angry, aggressive place, straight away they're shouting at you. And
does that happen?
Oh yeah. Not often, but it does happen. Drivers passing by in their cars and vans like shout at us on a constant basis. We get it all the time, but it's knowing what to choose your battles, to pick your battles, because if someone's coming at you from that angry place, they're already not receptive to the message. So yeah, so often I'll meet them at their level and say something stupid back to them, and they'll walk away, and great, because we don't want them because they're not receptive. But you'll have other people in the same hour, in the same 10 minutes, come up and, oh, what's going on here? And you tell them, and they're like, oh God, that's awful, isn't it? Like, and then they're receptive to the message because you're not starting on the wrong foot, and then you can make progress and show them the animals and tell them what they can do. And so, yeah, focusing on those that are listening is something I try and do. Like if they're like on, and that goes for social media. If trolls are commenting on social media and they're not receptive to the message, just move on. Don't reply. You don't need to waste your breath on them. Yeah, because otherwise you'll be there all day. Just
focus on the positives, focus on the things that you can do. And I think so much of animal welfare, you just have to stay positive. So much that's out of our control, sadly, nothing we can do about it. So it's good just to stay positive, keep at it. How long have you been doing the plant-based news?
I've been working with them for 3.5 years, maybe coming up to 4 years, I think.
Were you a zookeeper just before? Did you transition?
There was a job in between zookeeper and plant-based news, which was I worked in a zero waste store for about a year.
Let's talk about the life of a zookeeper. Now, I wanted to be a zookeeper.
Did you?
When I wanted to be a zookeeper, particularly cheetahs.
Oh, nice.
For some reason, I was absolutely obsessed with cheetahs. I wanted to work in cheetah conservation, vowed to my family that I was going to start a cheetah conservation. But kelp's more general. You know, we had the plethora rather than focusing on species.
Yeah.
Was that your... Did you discover your love for animals there, or did you already know?
No, I already knew. I wanted to be a zookeeper because I loved animals. So yeah, I've always loved animals from as long as I can remember. When I was a little boy, I was obsessed. Like you say, you're obsessed with cheetahs. For me, it was always primates. It was always monkeys and apes.
Nice, good choice.
Yeah, just obsessed. You know, every cuddly toy I had was a monkey or an ape. Every book I had, it's just everything I loved. So I knew I wanted to work with animals always, and was just very lucky enough to get the job. But, you know, I had no qualifications. I didn't go to university. It was just luck, perseverance, and being in the right place at the right time, to be completely honest. Yeah, the life of a zookeeper. I was primarily a gorilla keeper.
That is amazing.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, I worked with monkeys as well, but I was primarily a gorilla keeper, and that is what I wanted to do when I got a job in the zoo. I was not a keeper. I was something that was called a zoo host. So I was basically there for the public more than the animals. I was there to do talks and show people through attractions and stuff like that. But then when the job came up for a gorilla keeper, I applied for it and, you know, put my name forward and made my case and got the job. And it was, you know, even though now I've come out the other side and I don't agree with zoos and I wish zoos didn't exist, and I think there's probably a better way to do it, and all of those things, it's still the best job I've ever had in my life and was 5 of the best years of my life, and I would never take it back because I love the animals that I worked with. I still love them.
Were they happy monkeys?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
As happy as a monkey can be in a zoo? I don't know.
Yeah, this is the thing. This is the thing, yeah. Obviously, there are good zoos and there are bad zoos.
Agreed.
Like, there's a full spectrum of good and bad. But the monkeys I worked with and the gorillas I worked with, none of them, apart from one, came from the wild. So nearly all of them, apart from one, were born in captivity, were born in a zoo. So it's all they've ever known. That doesn't mean it's right, but it does mean that it's all they've ever known. So they don't have any comparison in their mind. So they are as happy as they can be. And I will never put zookeepers down. I will never talk down on zookeepers. They are all in the job because they love animals.
Yeah.
So it's just they haven't. It's the same as veganism, because it is obviously encompassed into veganism, because it's not just about food, but they just haven't really connected the dots yet. And for me, it took a while for me to connect the dots, but I got there. But yeah, life of a zookeeper, it was great. It was a great job, looking after gorillas on a daily basis, feeding them, cleaning out their houses, and helping with, veterinary procedures and doing public talks. And yeah, it was great. But towards the end, the last couple of years, I just couldn't do it. I went vegan when I was a zookeeper. So I say vegan because, with quotation marks, because because as I said, veganism is not just about food. So I can't really say I was vegan, but I went plant-based for ethical reasons, for the animals.
Yeah. There's a lot to veganism, isn't there? When you get going, you think, oh God, I've got to change my shampoo.
Yeah.
Can't wear these shoes anymore.
Yeah, literally. So that obviously changed my mind a lot about zoos, and essentially I had to leave because I could no longer, with a clear conscience, go down to the gorilla house and see who were essentially my best friends locked up and being taunted by the public on a daily basis. And yeah, I just couldn't watch that anymore because it upset me so much.
This is the thing with the zoos. Zoo versus sanctuary.
Yeah.
This is the debate, because obviously zoos there is a scale. There are some zoos that work with conservation, and there are some breeds driven to extinction out in the world that wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for these conservation products. But it's so sad that we have to rely on keeping them in a enclosure to keep them safe. That's the only way they can survive, because out in the world they would be extinct because of hunting. And
it's not an easy answer, but I think the first thing I would say is, and something I have come to realize over years and years, is I try and ignore the terms sanctuary and zoo, because it doesn't always mean that just because something is called a sanctuary, it's good, and just because something's called a zoo, it's bad. Because I've been to many zoos in my past where the animal husbandry and welfare of those animals is better than some sanctuaries I've been to.
Interesting.
So I think that's very hard to distinguish. And there are places out there that call themselves sanctuaries, but in fact they are just zoos. There's places out there that call themselves safari parks and wildlife parks, but they are still a zoo. They are, profiting off of these animals. They are breeding animals. And of course, I completely agree with you. Like, some of these animals are critically endangered. Some have been brought back from the brink of extinction through breeding programs, conservation efforts.
Crazy.
But these numbers are so... if you look at the animals within zoos, the vast majority of them are not critically endangered. They use these big animals to bring people in the door. And that might then mean that they can focus on this tiny species of frog in Indonesia, which, is on the brink of extinction. But that's why I said earlier, like, that about there's got to be a different way. There's got to be a better way. And often it's laughable, the conservation efforts that zoos do. The zoo I worked at was laughable. Probably one of the richest, if not the richest zoo in the world, because of the company that owned the zoo. And the amount they gave to conservation projects is just embarrassing. Embarrassing. When there's people at the top, the big bosses, who are really living their best life, it's embarrassing. So I think there's other ways. There must be other ways. It's just a reallocation of money, I think.
It comes down to the money, doesn't it?
Always money. During COVID, the UK government gave, I can't remember the number, but it was millions and millions of pounds to UK zoos to keep them in business, basically, because obviously they lost all their business because it was COVID and no one was going out and visiting zoos. And that really shocked me, because it's like, wow, there's this money available which could just be given straight to conservation projects on the ground, out in Africa or out in the Congo, saving gorillas, or wherever it is, saving a cheetah, like whatever the animal is. They could just give this money to these conservation projects, but they don't. So it all comes down to money. There will be another way, and there are amazing rescue and rehabilitation centres all around the world, focused on obviously saving species in their native habitat and then re-releasing them. So yeah, if I could wave a magic wand, I would free up that money to give to these conservation projects directly. I don't think we need to have gorillas in Surrey. I don't think we need to, because those gorillas are never going to see the wild. It was a lie that I told myself and the public on a daily basis, that we were keeping them there for conservation in case their wild counterpart ever died out. But even so, even if that day came and their wild counterpart died, it would then take decades and decades to release these gorillas. You can't just throw a captive-born, captive-bred animal out in the wild. I mean, you can, but it's going to be a disaster. They will not survive. They've relied upon humans giving them their food every single day for their whole life. So it would take decades and decades of kind of reversing that process. Semi-wild enclosures out in the forest, etc. It's a complex topic, but yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
So is there a way that you could tell when you visit a zoo or a sanctuary or a wildlife, any title, is there a way that you can support high welfare organizations? Is there sort of anything that a bad organization might do, or that a good organization might do, or any particular projects it might participate in if you did want to visit somewhere like that, but you weren't sure?
I'd say, like, one thing that I will look at, if I ever wanted to go to a sanctuary in the UK, and obviously we're not talking about farm animal sanctuaries, we're talking about like exotic animals.
Exotic, right? Yep.
Then they should not be breeding animals. If they're a sanctuary, they should be, like, say there's a monkey sanctuary in the UK, that should solely exist to rescue animals from the pet trade or other zoos or wherever they've come from. They shouldn't be breeding animals there. It should just be a safe haven for rescued animals, basically, who are never going to see the wild. So they just exist to give them the best life possible. So if they're breeding animals, that's like a big red flag for me. And as I said earlier, and recently I came across one on social media. There was a place in Australia who were calling themselves a sanctuary, but quite clearly from a 5-second glance at their website. They were breeding animals. They had an animal arena where they were showing animals. So they were taking birds out to fly for the public and things like that. And that's just like unnecessary. It's entertainment. It's just entertainment. That's why they exist, to make money. It's not for the animals. Yeah, but obviously that's just kind of speaking in the UK. If you went abroad, it gets even trickier because there'll be elephant sanctuaries.
Oh God, animal tourism.
Yeah, it's so hard.
Complexities.
It's so hard to tell because they will dress themselves up as a sanctuary, but you can clearly see from the way they handle the animals, the way they interact with the animals, if they're riding the animals, sitting on the animals, if they have bull hooks, like elephant hooks, and they're jabbing, stabbing and hitting the animals, like there's things you can clearly see, but for the untrained eye, it's quite difficult.
And these places could still be saying sanctuary.
Yeah.
This term is so blurred that, and you can't blame people for going and participating, and because if a charity or a sanctuary is functioning and it's up and it's running and people are going and it says that it's prioritizing animal welfare, and you can hold the animal while you're there, that's surely, oh, great, it must be okay then. Meanwhile, the sloth is crapping its pants, putting itself in stress positions, but to so many people, that sort of looks, like hug me, when in actual fact, if you truly understood a sloth, arboreal creatures, that's them trying to make themselves as big as possible. Get away from me.
Yeah.
Like, I guess the same approach is for veganism. You tell people in different ways, educate in different ways, spread the word. Don't just hope that when people have the information, they make the compassionate choice.
Obviously, there are different people campaigning for different things as well, which is important because, there might be some people that think, well, let's focus on getting people to stop eating animals before we focus on whether it's a zoo or a sanctuary, or whether they, breed their sloths or whether they cuddle their sloths. So I think that's why it's important there's people campaigning for different things, because we can't all campaign for everything at the same time. Like, we don't have enough hours in the day. But yeah, zoos is something I'm quite passionate about, and I want to start speaking more about it. Yeah, hopefully I'll write a book one day. I'm planning on it. But
hey, if you've got a book in you, definitely write about that. You have such a unique perspective, and your journey to realization. I'm sure there'll be so many people that will identify with that slow creeping realization. Like, hold on a minute. Sometimes I wish I didn't see it.
Yeah.
I didn't care.
Yeah, I have that thought often. Yeah.
It would just be so nice to be able to turn a blind eye. Like, the amount of times the campaign Dogs Die in Hot Cars is extremely, I'm very passionate about that. And the amount of actually got a note written in my car to leave on people's windscreen wipers just to say, it does not take long for a car to reach oven temperatures in not that hot a heat. It doesn't have to be the scorching summer sun. And the amount of times I wish that I could see a dog. It happens all the time. I'll be out with my friends or my family, and there'll be a dog in the car, and everyone will look at me and go, "Oh, Molly, like, I'm sorry, guys. I'm off to the car parking attendant.
Yes.
I'm sorry." Some of your words this podcast have nearly brought me to tears. So I am
sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It's powerful, and it's refreshing to speak to someone who is as affected yet still determined as I am to change their lives and to make a difference.
Thank you, and likewise.
It's difficult, and we will die trying.
That's it. I'll never stop. So
No, not to be too morbid about it, but for me,
Yeah, but it's going in the right direction, albeit slowly. We've got to stay positive. Like, it doesn't sound like much, but now in the UK, it's self-reported, but 3% of the UK population now identifies as vegan or plant-based, which doesn't sound like a huge amount, but
something.
it's going in the right direction, and there's more and more reasons to do it now, and people are becoming more and more aware.
Well, I have one last question for you.
Ready?
Finish it on a very light note. So, what is your favorite vegan product at the moment? What are you absolutely loving? What would you recommend for maybe not actually? I think that's a two-pointed question, because what you may recommend for a meat eater to try a vegan food, it might be a different one to the one that is your favorite. Yeah,
that would be different. I can give two answers. I can give what I would recommend to a meat eater, and that would be this isn't chicken thighs.
Oh, I haven't heard. Is that new?
Not new, but it's been out a while. But I'd recommend that to someone who's not vegan who eats meat, because I can't eat it. It makes me feel sick because it's so realistic.
See, that's when when you've got that beetroot blood running out of a burger.
Yeah.
I can't. Yeah, two different things. That same for me.
Yeah, so try that. This isn't chicken thighs. They're so realistic. But for me, I'm obsessed with Lidl's smoked tofu.
Ooh.
It's amazing. Like, I just eat it cold, or I put it in a sandwich, and it's incredible. A
tofu sandwich?
Yeah, it's my new thing, tofu sandwich, yeah.
Wow.
I love it.
I'm going to have to try that.
Yeah, but smoked, and Lidl smoked tofu is the best. I mean, 80% of my diet is like whole food, plant-based, so rice, tofu, vegetables, like every day, basically, or like a protein shake or fruit. Like, that's most of my diet, but so I don't eat a great deal of junk food at the moment. But there's so much. I mean, Aldi, you can get vegan corn dogs, vegan battered sausages. Killing it. Yeah, like, so
they
good.
They are absolutely killing it at the moment.
So good. What about Veganuary? I've just found the best American pancake mix, which was in Lidl. Oh. That was in Lidl for Veganuary, but my local Lidl still has like loads of it left, and it makes the best pancakes.
I'm obsessed with pancakes, especially American pancakes.
Oh, see if you can go to Lidl. They might have some left over, but it's really good. So that's what I'm obsessed with at the moment.
Oh. You see, it doesn't have to be boring, does it? If you are going to go for junk food and you do want to go vegan, there are plenty of options. Yeah. See Aldi, see Lidl, see Asda.
Yeah.
Plant Pioneers, Sainsbury's. I mean, it's just amazing. The M&S range, Plant Kitchen.
Yeah.
So definitely, but as you say.
Yeah, Aldi just released pizzas which are really good. In the freezer, they do vegan chicken, margarita, and vegan pepperoni, and they're some of the best freezer pizzas I've had. Like, there's so much cheese, so much vegan cheese.
Vegan chicken pizza.
Yeah, barbecue.
I was just about to say with barbecue.
Yeah, barbecue's the best. It's the way to go.
Okay, I know where I'm doing my shopping this week. My goodness. Well, Darrell, thank you so much for your time today. I mean, this has been an educational, emotional roller coaster, and it's been wonderful to talk to a fenomenal animal lover.
Yes, a fellow
animal lover.
Thank you. No, thanks for having me on. It's been nice to meet you and chat.